Hi friends, welcome back to Clues by Sam. It is Thursday and we have another tricky one today. And if you don't know what Clues by Sam is, it is a daily puzzle game where you have 20 people on a board. Each of them may be a criminal or an innocent and give you clues to help you figure out what each person is. And we're here every day doing this. If you want to play together with me, then you can check the link in the description. And if you happen to get stuck or maybe you want to do it as I do, then I'm gonna start right now and I'm gonna try to explain my logic. Shall we go? We start with Ethan telling us that only one of the two innocents to the right of Ruby is Pam's neighbor. So there's 3 people to the right of Ruby, only 2 of them are innocents, but only one of them neighbor Pam, who is on the row above. Pam has 2 people who neighbor her to the right of Ruby, so since only one of them is an innocent, Stella can only be the second innocent to the right of Ruby. And Stella now tells us that both innocents in row 4 are connected. Row 4 is her row. And since we know that there has to be one innocent to the right of her, that innocent has to be Tina to be connected to her. And that makes Uma a criminal. And now we don't need Ethan's clue anymore. And the clue also tells us that there's only 2 innocents in row 4 total. We already know who those 2 are. So that makes Ruby a criminal as well. And we don't need Stella's clue anymore. Now Tina tells us there's an odd number of innocents neighboring Gabe. And Gabe has 5 neighbors in total. So that makes it so that either 5 of them are innocents or 3 of them are just 1. But we don't know yet. Uma now tells us that exactly 2 of the 3 innocents neighboring Hank are on the edges. So Hank has 8 people neighboring him in total. One of them is Ethan, who is already an innocent, and he has 1 more innocent on the edge among these 4 people, and 1 more innocent among these 3 who are not on the edge. That's 3 innocents total, but we don't know about any of them. What about Ruby? Ruby tells us that an odd number of innocents on the edges neighbor Gabe. So Gabe neighbors Hank, and he is on the edge. And he has an odd number of innocents neighboring him on the edge. We just said that Gabe could have 5 innocent neighbors. Well, now he can't anymore, because if he were to have 5 of them, all 3 of these people will be innocents, and that would make Hank have way more innocent neighbors than he should, because he can only have 3 at most. But only one of them is on the edge and neighboring Gabe. And how do we know that that one innocent is on the edge and neighboring Gabe? Why can it not be Gabe himself? Because Gabe has an odd number of innocents on the edges neighboring him. So if Gabe himself is an innocent, there's no way for Gabe himself to have an innocent neighboring him on the edge, because that would make Hank have more innocents on the edge neighboring him than he should. So Gabe couldn't be an innocent. Now Gabe tells us that Hank and him have only 1 innocent neighbor in common. And we know that 1 innocent neighbor is on the edge. So that makes Nicole, who is the other neighbor that they had in common and is not on the edge, a criminal. And we don't need his clue anymore. And Nicole now tells us that row 4 is the only row of exactly 2 innocents. How does that help me? How? Should we think about Hank too? Because let's say that Gabe has only 1 innocent neighbor here, right? I guess we know that he has only 1 innocent neighbor here. And he has to have an odd number of innocent neighbors. What if Hank were an innocent? Now Gabe would have 2 innocent neighbors total. And that would make an even number. So Hank has to be a criminal as well. I don't know about other rows of exactly 2 innocents yet, so I'm gonna leave that there and read Hank's clue. Exactly 1 innocent in row 1 is neighboring Gabe. So we know that the single innocent that Gabe has on the edge and Hank's second neighbor, who is an innocent on the edge, is either Chase or David, which makes Mary a criminal. And now we know that row 1 is gonna have 2 innocents here, Ethan and someone else here. But row 4 is the only row with 2 instants, so that makes it so that row 1 has to have one more instant, and that has to be Flora. Now we have 2 new clues. I guess we don't need these anymore. Mary's new clue tells us that Wally has exactly 3 instant neighbors, which means that either Vince or Xavi, not Wally, either Vince or Xavi, who neighbor Wally, will have to be his last instant neighbor, but we don't know who yet. And Flora tells us that Pam is one of Joy's 5 criminal neighbors. So where's Pam? Here. Pam is a criminal. Joy now has 3 criminal neighbors. And she has to have 2 more. But we don't know if both Keith and Olga are those 2. So let's leave that there. Pam now tells us that Stella has only 1 instant neighbor on the edge. Where's Stella? Stella is gonna have for sure 1 instant neighbor here who's either gonna be Vince or Xavi. That also neighbor Wally. Which makes it so that Wally couldn't be an instant. And now Wally tells us that Zane and him have only 1 instant neighbor in common. Zane and him already have 1 instant neighbor in common, who's Tina. So that makes it so that Xavi couldn't be an instant as well. So he's a criminal and Vince has to be an instant. Now Vince tells us that Tina has the most criminal neighbors of everybody on the board. Well, we know that Joy has 5 criminal neighbors, which means that Tina has to have at least 1 more than that. Or does anybody have any more criminals than 6 already? I don't think so. How many do Tina have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5 total. Which means that she has to have at least 1 more. But could she have both Olga and Zane big criminals? I guess she could. If there's someone that's gonna have more than 5. Stella has 5 also. And if Olga is to be a criminal, Stella will have 6. Which would make it so that Zane has to be a criminal. But if Olga is an innocent, which she could be, Tina would still have to have 1 more criminal neighbor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So she would have to have 1 more to make 6, because Joy has 5, Stella has 5. So in any situation, Zane has to be a criminal. How do we figure Olga out now? How many criminal neighbors can Olga have? Olga has 4 so far. If both Joy and Keith were criminal, then Olga would have to be a criminal as well, because that would make it so that Olga has 5, okay. Olga has 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Olga has 6, sorry. And Tina would have to have 7. If Joy is an innocent, Olga would have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why am I switching those up? Olga would then have 5. And that would make it so that Tina could have either 6 or 7. So that wouldn't matter for Olga, what she is. What about Hank, though? How many criminal neighbors does Hank have? Hank has 3 so far. He's gonna have a 5th one here. And we know that he has 3 instant neighbors, right? There's a clue telling us that 3 instant neighbor Hank in total. There I go, dismissing clues that I shouldn't have. And that makes it so since he has 8 neighbors total, he has 5 criminal ones. So we know that 3 are here, 4th one is here, which means that a 5th one is gonna be here. These guys are one or the other, Joy and Olga. And if these guys are one or the other, now we have the information we need to do the actual tagging. Because if we make Olga an innocent, Joy would have to be a criminal. And that makes it so that Tina has 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Olga has 6 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because Keith would have to be a criminal. Because Joy has to have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 criminal neighbors. So that wouldn't work. Olga couldn't be an innocent. Almost misclicked there. And that makes it so that David and Keith are one or the other. Now, how do we work that out? If we didn't get a new clue. Is it about Nicole? Nah, Nicole has 4 criminal neighbors total, so that doesn't matter anymore. Oh, is it about the row? Row 4 is the only row of exactly 2 innocents, so Keith couldn't be an innocent, because that would make row 2 have 2 innocents. So Keith has to be a criminal, which makes David an innocent, and Chase a criminal. And we are done. Very good, very good. Sorry about all my... I had some English trouble there today. Or I guess I was thinking about the next thing, and I was trying to say the next thing as I was talking about the thing we were looking at. So, yeah, caused some confusion, but I hope it was understandable. And I'll leave this here for today. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back here again tomorrow for more Clues by Sam. So, see you then.